Morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the news agenda with me, Fleet Street Fox. And today I'm joined by the Mirror's political correspondent, Mikey Smith, dubbed the most dangerous man in Westminster. Don't know why, police won't reveal.
It's a very long story.
Now we're going to take you through the biggest and most important stories of the day. And a bit about Piers Morgan, I'm afraid. And through it all, we want you to ask us your questions. So get into the comments, tell us whatever is burning a hole in your head, and we will do our best to help you with it, or at least put the fires out a bit. So what have we got today? Well, continuing aftershocks from the Meghan and Harry interview are dominating all the front pages again, with the Mirror focusing on the Queen's official sadness and varying recollection of what was said to whom and to when. We will always love you. Queen Whitney Houston II there, talking to Meghan from across the pond. Now, Mikey, you're a seasoned political operator, just like the Queen. So what do you make of her 61 extremely pithy and rather delayed words on this matter?
Yeah, it took a while, didn't it? If any other major organisation took this many days to come out with a response to allegations of racism, I think it'd be a problem. Yeah, certainly recollections may vary is a phrase that I'm going to be saving up for my next performance review. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's about there with I was present but did not participate. Or
yes,
I inhaled, but I smoked but did not inhale.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'd like to see how many versions this went through before it got released. This seems like a statement that many people have had an argument with, and recollections may vary sort of stands out as something that someone insisted had to go in it. That was a denial without quite being a denial. We take it very seriously, but we're going to deal with it in private. Well, it's very royal family, to be honest.
Yeah, from a press and PR point of view, let's just say if this was about an actual firm rather than the firm, what could they say? Because they've been accused of asking about the colour of a mixed race baby's skin while that baby is still gestating in a woman's womb. Now, either that didn't happen at all and they've got to deny it, which gets them into a tit for tat with Meghan, or it did happen, which admitting would be incredibly damaging. They can't do that. They can't admit or deny. And the third alternative is that there was some iteration of that conversation that can have two varying recollections. That perhaps, because things they were discussing security and titles, somebody said, look, his risk of his security as he grows up is going to be worse from far right, racist, extremist terrorists if he's got a darker skin, which I can understand the logic behind it. I don't know if it would be accurate to speak to a police officer. And maybe Meghan just heard that and Harry heard that as just being, what? A bit different. Yeah. But still, even that, and I'm imagining this, I have no indication of whether that's happened, even that would be so damaging because you've got to admit then the royal family were discussing the colour of Archie's skin, and that's bad. That's it. That's bad enough. That's game over, isn't it? And if there's nothing you can say from a PR perspective, you've got to sit there and say nothing. But here we are yesterday, Charles on a public visit, getting shouted at stopped politely by a journalist, and asked, what do you think of the interview, sir? If all the royals are going to get this on their public engagements, they can't. This isn't sustainable, is it, Mikey?
I should point out that Charles didn't necessarily help himself in this visit.
He did
when he said to a nurse, asked a nurse where she came from, and she said, Nigeria, though I've been in this country a long time. Charles replied, oh, fantastic. Yes, I've been there. Lots of different ethnic groups. Do give them my kind regards next time you speak to them. I mean, shades of his father in there, I think. But yeah, no, he didn't help himself in that particular exchange. But I think it also depends, who said these remarks. So, because if this was a company, and a member of staff had made these remarks, then you could fire them. That would be the PR move you would take. You can't fire a member of the family, but potentially they could fire a member of staff.
A
But
lot
they
of people
probably
have fired members of their families. Effectively, they said, "Right, I'm not talking to you no more. You're too much. No more
well, I
Christmas.
mean,
Can't do it."
I suppose Andrew has been more or less fired. But yeah, no, the royal family doesn't work like a normal company. There is a normal organisation. I think there's an argument for perhaps them working more like a normal organisation. But
Yeah, and speaking of, and I keep asking you your questions, tell us what you think about the royals' PR response to this and whether you think it's appropriate or not. But speaking of companies that respond to complaints or criticism, the big news yesterday was former Mirror and News of the World editor. I didn't work with him. I don't think you did, Mikey, either. So we don't have any dog in this fight. But Piers Morgan got up and stormed out of his own show shortly before parting ways, shall we say, with ITV and GMB, following 41,000 complaints to Ofcom, which is right up there in terms of Jade Goody racism row, in terms of how bad that is, as far as in Ofcom records. And he's now tootling off and spending time with his family, or his agent or whatever. And that is how a company reacts when there have been complaints. I mean, all right, Meghan's only made one, but it's very different, isn't it? Do you think GMB and Piers did the right thing, Mikey?
I think it was inevitable, really. It was always going to end in an explosion, wasn't it? I never. If you were putting a bet on it, if you had your bingo card out, you wouldn't have put the weatherman being the guy who triggered Piers's explosive exit.
Maybe Alex Beresford should have a trigger warning every time he comes on screen now. Warning, will upset middle-aged
what's he going to do now? You can't just go back to doing the weather.
Well, this is the thing. He's Piers Morgan was good ratings, right? So from a TV perspective, regardless of how many complaints he got, he's good to have on your show. And as Sandra says there, he was great at interviewing politicians. Downing Street had a long boycott of Piers and his programme because of Piers. And there are very few attack dog interviewers, sorry, Mikey, knocking about these days that have the platform to both get those politicians on and then pick them up and slap them around the studio when they do. And Piers did that, and that was an important function. It was an important thing for all of us. But yeah, he was obsessed with Meghan, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think that there's a question over whether Piers' style of interviewing was, I think it was probably quite cathartic for viewers. I don't think he ever got a good answer out of him, even when he did slap him around, though. He wasn't Paxman. He was really good at making ministers look stupid, which is, and I think there's value to that. But I'm not convinced I would struggle to remember a good answer he got out of a minister.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of finesse in what he did, but like you said, it was cathartic because there are people at home, the people in our comments are saying he spoke for the nation, right? When you get Matt Hancock on and whatever, and he's talking about coronavirus and how the health department did everything possible, there are millions of people at home shouting and screaming and putting their fists through the telly and then the telly out the window going, "You what?" Because they've got relatives in care homes, because they know someone in the NHS, because they've been ill with COVID, because they just take notice of what's going on. And if someone's on the telly doing that, I get it a little bit when I do a bit of television, if I happen to say any of this stuff, that people react to you saying, thank God someone's saying it to them, to their face, because the people at home don't have the access.
There's certainly value to that. And I suspect he's not going to go away.
Yes, where is he going? What's the gossip?
I mean, there's two obvious places he could go. One is GB News, which is the Andrew Neil's new startup, which has apparently got 3 former Brexit Party candidates on staff. The other one is Rupert Murdoch setting up a video on demand service, which I don't know a huge amount about.
No. When's GB News supposed to be going live?
Fairly soon, I think. I honestly don't know, but it's coming soon. They're
Well,
stepping
fingers
up.
crossed. And I hope if Andrew's watching, that he doesn't do what a lot of other fresh startup journalistic enterprises do, which is give graduates 50 quid a day to do 12, 16-hour shifts running around after the egos who get six figures. Please don't do that, Andrew.
Agreed.
I know you're a slightly
Agreed.
better journalist than that, so try not to do that. Now, as our commenters have said, why are we bringing him back? Why should we have to put up with him? He's a polarizing figure, a lot like Meghan, which is perhaps why the two of them seem to become so entwined, I suppose, in each other's fates in some regard. But it's all rather depressing. I don't think he's going to go quiet, and I don't think Meghan is going to go quiet either. Although I think this is definitely 1-0 to the weatherman at this stage. It's raining Piers as far as Alex Beresford is concerned. Now, let's get on to a slightly more important story, which Mikey does care about, because he doesn't care at all about Meghan or Piers. Now, there's the suggestion that the 1% pay rise for nurses is, well, firstly, it's disgusting, but secondly, that Boris Johnson's going to come under pressure to make a change on this. He's already said this was just a suggestion to the pay review body, and it's up to the pay review body. But if the pay review body then overrules the government, that would be politically pretty difficult as well. And the Mirror's got a good spread there, talking about some interviews from the nurses and staff, talking about what they've gone through this year and what 1% would mean to them, which is, to sum it up, pretty offensive. Mikey, what are the chances of there actually being a U-turn on this? Are they going to have to do it? I mean, they're quite good at U-turns. They know how to do them, don't they?
They do. They've done them quite a lot, and usually in the face of public outcry. I think it's possible. I don't think we've seen a huge amount of evidence that it's actually going to happen. So how it all went out is the 1% came from a government document that said basically this is what we can afford, and the ministers have been rolled out on telly saying, this is what is affordable. So in spring, we're expecting the pay review bodies to come out and say what they think the pay rise should be. Now, the government doesn't have to take their advice, and usually doesn't. It's in recent years, it's been quite rare that the government has actually given out the pay rise recommended by the pay review body. They normally lowball them. And so the pay review bodies can't actually overrule them, but they can say, what the pay rise should be. The other slight wrinkle in this is that in April last year, the government set out its long-term plan for the NHS, which the NHS uses to budget, and their long-term planning was based on a 2.1% pay rise, because that's what they were told was likely. And you may think, okay, well, doesn't that mean they've just got more money in the budget? They use that for things like recruitment, so it's going to be harder for them to recruit with a 1% pay rise than with a 2.1% pay rise.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also the Mirror Politics newsletter, which everyone should sign up to, by the way, because it's very good. It said today, since 2010, nurses have had the equivalent of a 12% pay cut.
Yeah.
In 10 years. So this isn't just, do I want a little bit more this year, mister? Please, sir, can I have some more? This is, hello, what? I'm on 90% of what I was earning 10 years ago. How many of us would put up with that?
Yeah.
And especially in a year when we've worked harder and been at more risk and done more hours.
Well, this was Labour's argument yesterday. Why does the government suddenly think after the pandemic that nurses are worth less than they were before the pandemic? I mean, as for whether there's going to be a U-turn on it, it's possible. I think if there was going to be a U-turn on it, it would be something like, okay, we've suggested 1% now, and in the spring, they say it needs to be 2%, and there's a lot of leeway in the middle of 1% and 2%. Like a 1% pay rise is about £500 million. So it's possible this is all a big thing to soften people up for a less than 2% pay rise.
Yeah,
because it's more than 1%. But
bunging every nurse 500 quid or something It's more difficult in England than it is in Scotland, where they did it because there's more nurses fundamentally, but also surely when you give a pay rise to the public sector, you get some of that back. In fact, you get a lot of it back, because you get back on tax, you get back in national insurance, and you get back when they spend more money and fuel the economy. So it's a great way of growing the economy. You give a pay rise to the public sector and everything goes, doesn't it?
Yeah, basically, yes. The Conservative Party has consistently underestimated the amount of public support for the NHS and for NHS workers. I mean, you only have to look back the last sort of few years. You've had the junior doctors contracts issue, which they got battered on. You've had the whole going right back to 2010, the whole reorganisation of the NHS, which they've just this year completely scrapped and U-turned on, because after causing so much fury when they were doing it, they've worked out after 10 years doesn't work. Doesn't work very well.
About 12 billion, I think, to do that, as I remember at the time.
Huge
Anne-Marie points out the NHS saved Boris Johnson's life. He's given it a kick in the face. The NHS staff should all go on strike. Sticky wicket though, Anne-Marie, because it means cancer waiting lists, it means outpatient appointments getting cancelled, it means all sorts of grim stuff that loses public support for things like this. I mean, yes, in theory, but... And Sue says care workers should get a pay rise too. In fact, they've raised the minimum wage to 10 quid. That'd be nice, Sue. It would also be nice if care workers were actually paid by the state and care homes were run by the state, and you had a national care service that worked hand in glove with the NHS, as opposed to a privately run, fragmented, completely different rules in different places all the way through it care service, which is run on a profit motive, and which is all of which has contributed to the things that have happened in the past year. And it means that when the government wants care homes to do something, they can only issue guidance. They're not issuing instructions, which is crap. But again, that means income tax going up to pay for it. People don't want that either. It's what the voters don't want to wear. And you don't have a politician that can say, we don't have in Keir Starmer, we don't have someone inspiring enough or loquacious enough, postman's here, or loquacious enough to say, guess what, everyone, a penny on income tax, let's solve our problems. Let's have a national care service. Let's do this. Let's do something inspiring. Let's build coming out of this. We just have me. And, you know, Keir today in PMQ's mic, he's probably going to go on about the nurses' pay rise. What can he actually do to cut through?
I think they've tried about as much as they can to cut through on this one. I think, if I'm honest, I think they'll go on test and trace today rather than the 1%. Labour have had a fairly good run of statements on the NHS pay rise so far, and I think they'll keep that bubbling under. But today there's been a report come out from the Public Accounts Committee about the eye-watering sums spent on the test and trace system, 37 billion quid, and the report suggests that there's no evidence that it's made a difference to the spread of the virus.
It's made a difference to Dido Harding, so that's all right. Although she was doing it unpaid, wasn't she? But it's made a difference to her, and that she's getting lots of public criticism.
She was doing that part of her job unpaid. She's still paid.
She's got several jobs, isn't she? That's why.
She has many jobs. She has many hats on, and she's still paid quite a lot for some of them. But yeah, no clear evidence.
Mr. Hancock.
So yeah, I think there might be a comparison between the 1%, which would cost a fraction of the cost of the test and trace system, and the 37 billion quid. If I was Keir, that's where I'd go.
Yeah, and now there is something that briefly talk about, before we move on to the good news, keep asking us your questions, everybody, whether it's about Piers or Meghan or nurses or test and trace or anything else. Get in the comments and ask us whatever's on your minds. But there is a little side piece on that NHS 1% spread, if we can bring it up again, which is Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer, warning about another surge over there on the right-hand side. He's saying that as lockdown is eased, because some people aren't vaccinated and don't want to be vaccinated, there will be perhaps 30,000 more deaths either this summer or next winter. Now, Rishi Sunak was criticised yesterday by another SAGE member for being behind the last summer surge. Now we know this about test and trace, more billions going into it. It's still not doing anything. It's not having an impact on infection rates. Is there any chance, Mikey, that this is wrong? Or are we really going to come out of lockdown, go into summer, and then go back into deaths again?
If you look back through the predictions that Chris Whitty has made previously, they've all been pretty much dead on.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. They've been accurate. Sometimes he's even been a little bit below what
he's
actually
man, isn't he? You wouldn't
yeah,
say
he's relatively good. He's not a guy who goes out there to instill panic in people, but he's not going to sugarcoat it. The story that was around yesterday was about Rishi Sunak, which got brought up in the Commons, and Rishi Sunak said that at all times the government has taken scientific advice, which is just demonstrably untrue.
Taken it and inserted it somewhere, tickled each other backsides with it, and then thrown it in the bin.
But you'll have noticed, or you may have noticed, that in the budget last week there was no mention whatsoever of the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. There was also Rishi Sunak put out this glossy video last week, outlining all his great achievements of the last 12 months, and there was no mention of Eat Out to Help Out. Probably the reason for that is that studies have shown it increased infection rates by between, I think it's 8 and 17%.
Do we know how many jobs it saved, if any?
Well, the argument there's a book on its way out, and the argument in this book, in the extract that I read yesterday, was that Eat Out to Help Out wasn't really to save jobs; it was to make people less afraid to go outside the house.
It's a pandemic. You want people to be frightened of the.
Exactly, but the argument is that if it had been about saving jobs in the economy, then it would have included takeaways, and it didn't. It was only for sit-in restaurants. So I don't know whether that's true, but it seems clear that it was a pretty bad idea. And the fact that nobody's talking about it anymore after it was this huge flagship operation, nobody's talking about it anymore, seems to suggest that the government has realised it was a bad idea. Yeah, but we've reported repeatedly on sage advice that's been published in dribs and drabs, sometimes months after it was given, that showed that the government just didn't follow the advice. They actively ignored and did the opposite of what they were being told to do. So
that's just really depressing, Mikey. You've really depressed me now. Thanks very much.
Should we go for the good news?
Yeah. Crikey, let's have a screeching U-turn of exactly the kind Boris Johnson can and should be performing. And we've got some good news we want to give you. And it's all about animals. So watch this. They've got them the wrong way round. Never mind. There is another story in the paper today about how GIFs are good for you. In other words, looking at memes, looking at funny cat videos and animal videos actually improves your mental health. So all those hours you spend wasted on the internet looking at Dick King-Smith's Twitter feed, which is what I spend my time on, looking at animals eating hose pipes and jumping up and down on trampolines and stuff like that, improves your mental health, It's a boost. You should be doing more of it. And Mikey has got an amazing exclusive in today's newspaper. Should have been the front page, Mikey. I don't know why it wasn't, but apparently there's a fat cat in Downing Street. Take us through it, because this is going to give everyone improved mental health.
So a memo went around Number 10 staff yesterday that said that Larry the cat, the 14-year-old chief mouser in Number 10, that's 72 years in human years. So he's an old boy. He was taken to the vets for a health check, and he got a pretty good MOT. He's in pretty good shape, but he's put on 0.5 kilo during lockdown. So Number 10 staff have been asked very nicely not to give him as many treats.
You know what it is? He's carrying Boris's £250 a week Dalesford organic delivery celebrity food camper and scoffing it, and he's cleaning the plates when they finish their £50 a day pre-prepared lunches. That's what it is. He's chowing down. And this is something I want to ask, actually. Boris Johnson keeps saying he's losing weight. Doesn't look. He's supposed to have lost a stone. Where's he lost it from? He's wearing the same suits. He looks just the same as he did before.
The weird thing is, not only does he keep saying he's losing weight, he keeps saying he's doing the same thing to lose weight. Like 2 or 3 times now, months and months apart, he said he's given up late night cheese, and that's how he's losing weight. And it's almost like he doesn't know that we can check back through the cuttings and see that that's what you said last year. And really,
and if you ate that much cheese that you've lost a stone, then you used to look like a truckle of cheese, and now you look like, a slice of cheese. You look the same, mate. You look the same.
Apparently, cheese is Larry's downfall as well. It's dreamies. Yeah. Apparently, staff are giving him too many dreamies. Dreamies are. I've seen cats on dreamies, and
I don't know what a dreamy is.
They're these little sort of treats that come in this bag, and I've never seen anything. You know how cats are like aloof and standoffish.
Scumbags.
Never seen a cat get so excited about anything as about these tiny things. I've no idea what's in them, but apparently there's some cheese in them. But they're insane. The effect these have on these animals, and apparently Larry loves them. I should add.
You know what he's doing? He's going from he's going from one civil servant to the next one looking hungry, and they're going, oh, no one's fed him. That's
exactly what's happening. And Larry's actually owned by the civil servants. He's not Boris's cat. He's the civil servants' cat, and they have a kitty to pay for his food. So it's the officials to blame for his lockdown paunch. Mind you,
the men in grey suits.
I dream of only having put on 0.5 kilo during lockdown. So I can't.
Do you know what it is? I think it's because cats are Tories. I've always thought this. Socialists, cats are Tories. That's why they're so scathing and off-putting and everything else. And obviously, he and Boris share the same taste in cheese. Maybe it's Dreamies that's doing for Boris as well. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for watching. We hope we've given you something to cheer you up, even if it was only about thinking about the political voting intentions of your domestic pets. Thank you for joining us, Mikey, and thank you for your comments. Sorry if we couldn't get to all of them. We will see you again next Monday, when I dare say we'll still be discussing Meghan, Piers, coronavirus, maybe even cats. Who knows? See you then. Bye-bye.